He thought the human would scream. But when the pain level hit maximum, the human only smiled, and then everything changed. He thought the human would scream. But when the pain level hit maximum, the human only smiled. The alien flagship's central war chamber pulsed with cold blue light. Metallic walls towered upward in perfect geometric symmetry, covered in shifting holographic war maps. At the center of it all stood a raised, circular platform surrounded by gravity, amplifiers, and neural pain emitters. Suspended above the platform were monitoring drones, recording every heartbeat, every muscle contraction, every flicker of nerve activity. On that platform stood a human. His wrists were locked in glowing restraints made of condensed energy. His boots were magnetized to the floor to keep him upright. Sweat rolled slowly down his temple, but his breathing was steady, controlled. In front of him loomed alien General Varkon, nearly 9 feet tall. Encased in black biomechanical armor, red light glowed from behind his helmet's narrow visor. To Varkon, this wasn't simple torture. It was strategy. If the human broke, Earth would surrender. If he begged, humanity would kneel. Pain threshold 70%, the chamber AI announced. A surge of blue electricity erupted from the emitters. It wrapped around the human's body like living lightning. Muscles spasmed violently. The smell of ozone filled the air. The observation deck above the chamber remained silent. Alien officers studied their data streams. At 70%, most species lost consciousness in under 5 seconds. The human did not. His jaw tightened. His shoulders strained against the restraints. A deep breath escaped his lungs. Then he slowly lifted his head. His eyes locked onto the general. No scream. Varkon tilted his head slightly, curious. Increase to 90%, the general ordered. Gravity intensified instantly. The metal beneath the human's boots groaned. His knees bent slightly under the crushing force. Veins rose sharply along his arms and neck. Pain receptors flooded his nervous system. His heart rate spiked. And then, the corner of his mouth lifted. A faint smile. A murmur escaped his lips. That all you've got? For the first time since humanity had been captured, the alien observers felt something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. Because the human was not breaking. He was enduring. And endurance was not something their simulations had predicted. Maximum output, General Varkon commanded. The chamber vibrated as the system escalated beyond regulated thresholds. White energy replaced blue. Neural fire surged directly into the human's central nervous system. Gravity doubled again, forcing microscopic fractures across the platform's surface. The human's body shook violently. His muscles locked. His breathing grew ragged. Data screens flashed red warnings. Skeletal strain critical. Cardiac stress extreme. Still, he did not fall. The alien scientists leaned closer to their monitors. They had studied dozens of species across the galaxy. Pain compliance was universal. Every intelligent race had a limit, a point where biology demanded surrender. But the human's neural pathways were doing something unexpected. They were adapting. Electrical impulses that should have overwhelmed his brain began to stabilize. Damaged pathways rerouted signals. Hormonal responses shifted. Adrenaline and endorphins surged in coordinated waves. The human laughed. It was strained, raw, almost broken, but unmistakably laughter. You think pain is a weapon, he said through clenched teeth. For us, it's training. General Varkon stepped closer to the platform. No biological organism can withstand this level indefinitely. Good, the human replied. Because I don't plan to. Varkon activated the core override. Now it wasn't calibrated torture. It was annihilation-level stimulus, the kind used to erase insurgent species from existence. The emitters screamed as power flooded the chamber. The blast of energy lit the room like a dying star. For 3 full seconds, the human disappeared inside pure white light. When the brightness faded, smoke drifted through the chamber. The human was still standing. Burns marked his skin. Blood traced a line from his nose. His arms trembled. But he was upright, and smiling wider than before. The alien data feeds shifted from red to something worse. Unknown. The human's neural patterns were no longer spiking chaotically. They had synchronized, balanced, reinforced. It was as if the pain had not destroyed him. It had refined him. Varkon felt a subtle shift in the room. This was no longer an interrogation. It was becoming a mistake. Cracks spread across the glowing restraints around the human's wrists. The alien guards reacted instantly, raising plasma weapons toward the platform. The observation deck erupted in overlapping commands. Containment failing. Energy feedback detected. Neural amplification reversing polarity. General Varkon stared at the readings in disbelief. The pain emitters were not simply overwhelming the human anymore. They were feeding him. His nervous system had adapted to the electrical frequency and begun converting the excess energy into stabilized bioelectric output. "That is impossible," one of the alien scientists whispered. The human exhaled slowly. "You pushed too hard," he said calmly. With a sharp crack, the first restraint shattered. Sparks burst outward. The second followed half a second later. An electromagnetic pulse exploded from the platform. Screens flickered. Holograms collapsed into static. Gravity stabilizers failed, causing several alien officers to stumble inside the observation deck. The pulse rolled outward through the flagship's systems like a shockwave. Power grids faltered. Weapon systems rebooted. Communication arrays glitched. The human rolled his shoulders as if loosening stiff muscles after exercise. "You thought pain would control me," he said, stepping forward. "But you just reminded me what I can survive." The guards fired. Plasma bolts streaked toward him, but the residual electromagnetic distortion bent their trajectories off course. The blasts scorched walls instead. General Varkon finally stepped back. The human walked toward him slowly, boots echoing against metal flooring. Each step felt heavier than the amplified gravity had moments before. Not because of force, because of realization. The galaxy had classified humans as physically average. Moderate strength, moderate intelligence, standard resilience. They had misunderstood something fundamental. Humans did not rely on fixed limits. They expanded them. The war chamber's core systems began shutting down, automatically to prevent overload. Emergency alarms pulsed red light across the walls. The flagship, pride of the alien fleet, was destabilizing. All because one human refused to scream. Varkon tightened his armored fists. "What are you?" he demanded. The human stopped only a few feet away. "We're the species," he answered evenly, "that gets stronger when it survives." And he took another step forward. Through the massive viewport behind the general, Earth shimmered in the darkness of space. Blue oceans, white cloud bands, fragile and alive. Varkon had planned to use this human as leverage. Break him publicly. Broadcast the collapse of Earth's strongest soldier across interstellar channels. Instead, alarms echoed through his flagship. Core destabilization at 12%. Primary weapons offline. Fleet command link interrupted. The human glanced at the viewport briefly, then back at the general. "You wanted to send a message," he said quietly. The gravity in the chamber flickered unevenly. For a moment, everything felt weightless, then heavy again. Varkon activated his armored gauntlet, charging it with compressed plasma. "You are one organism," he growled. "You cannot represent an entire species." The human's expression hardened. Not angry, not reckless. Certain. "I don't need to." The general lunged. The plasma-charged fist swung downward with crushing force. The human moved just enough. The impact shattered the platform instead of his skull. Metal buckled. The human drove his shoulder forward, slamming into the general's armored chest. The collision sent a shock wave through the chamber. They struggled, raw strength against adaptive endurance. Varkon was larger, stronger, but the human had already endured worse than this. Every strike from the general met resistance that refused to collapse. Every surge of force was absorbed, redirected. The chamber lights flickered violently. The flagship's AI attempted emergency shutdown of the interrogation sector, but corrupted feedback loops prevented isolation. "You cannot win," Varkon snarled. The human locked eyes with him. "Winning isn't the point." He shoved the general backward toward the command console. Sparks flew as armored plating scraped against metal. "You thought pain was power," the human continued. "But power is what happens after pain." He reached for the communication interface. The fleet-wide transmission channel, activated automatically due to system failure protocols. Across dozens of alien ships, screens came alive, and they saw one human standing unbroken inside their most advanced warship. Static rippled across every alien frequency. The human stood in the center of the damaged war chamber, breathing hard but steady. Smoke curled around him. Behind him, the alien general struggled to rise from the cracked floor. "This is humanity's response," the human said into the open transmission channel. Across the fleet, commanders watched in stunned silence. "You studied us," he continued. "You measured our strength, our speed, our weapons." He wiped blood from his lip with the back of his hand. "But you measured the wrong thing." The flagship shuddered again as secondary reactors overloaded. Emergency lighting bathed the chamber in deep red. "You thought pain would break us," he said. "You thought fear would make us kneel." He shook his head slightly. "Pain is part of our history. It's in our wars, our disasters, our failures. Every time we fall, we adapt. Every time we suffer, we learn." Behind him, the general finally rose, armor sparking and damaged. Yet he did not attack again. He understood now. The human wasn't surviving despite the pain. He was evolving because of it. "We don't fear pain," the human said clearly. "We use it." The transmission locked onto every ship in orbit around Earth. "You have two choices," he finished. "Leave or push us again and make us stronger." Silence filled the fleet channels. The alien vessels began receiving cascading system alerts from the damaged flagship. "Command integrity compromised. Tactical superiority lost." For the first time since their arrival, hesitation spread across the invading force. One by one, the outer ships powered down their weapons. Retreat protocols initiated. The human watched through the viewport as the fleet slowly repositioned, forming jump coordinates away from Earth. He exhaled. Not relief, resolve. General Varkon stared at him from across the shattered chamber. "You endure beyond logic," the general said quietly. The human met his gaze. "No," he replied. "We endure beyond expectation." Outside, the alien fleet vanished into hyperspace. Earth remained, unconquered. And across the galaxy, a new understanding took root. If you raise the pain against humanity, be prepared for what rises with it. Because when the pain level hits maximum, the human doesn't scream. He smiles and asks for more.